Hello and welcome to the Uneducated PT Podcast with me, your host, Carl O'Rourke. The goal of this podcast is to bring on interesting and knowledgeable people from all walks of life, learn a little something from each conversation, and for you, the listener, to learn something from each episode. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, press the box below, show some support, and I'll see you on the next episode. Okay, welcome back to the Uneducated PT Podcast. We've been out of action for the last couple of months as I've had to move flat and get Wi-Fi sorted and everything else, but we won't get into that. So we're back in action. We have plenty of great guests coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I wanted to start off with a very, very special guest today, Mr. Thomas Woodcock. I'll give a little bit of an introduction into Tommy before we get started. So he started off documenting his cancer journey, and I would highly recommend following it, especially if you're someone who's going through anything similar or have family maybe going through it. Me and Tommy were both brought up in the same area. Actually, his younger sister Grania is one of my closest and oldest friends, so that's how I know Tommy originally. And I've always known Tommy for being someone, big into sport, strong, athletic. He even used to bully me on the football pitch when he played for boys, but we won't get into that. He's an absolute gent, and we even worked together on my online training program back in, I think it was January 2021 I was looking up there, Tommy. So yeah, an absolute breeze to work with as a client. Just someone who loves exercise, loves staying fit. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the knee that you had issue with, wasn't it?
I did both knees in playing football or soccer as they call it over here,
So the knees were banjacks, but it didn't stop Tommy from training hard. I think we had you on the cycling bike. I think you were boxing at the time as well, weren't you?
I was doing a little bit, just training with the boxing in the boxing club. Just
basically, like, even with work commitments. I think you were in college at the time as well, were you?
Yeah, I was in college. I was getting my engineering degree. So I was doing that at night.
Yeah. So like working, college commitments, family commitments, and still trying to find a way to train, even with two
the little lad being born in December kind of slowed all that down.
September, but like it just goes to show someone who's kind of resilient and committed to whatever he does. And I think before going into actual this, documenting of the cancer journey and talking a little bit about that, I suppose I wanted to, for anyone who's listening who might not know you, because we do have kind of viewers from all over the world. You moved from Ireland to New Jersey. What year did you move?
Yeah, I actually moved over here in 2014 for 6 months just to try it out because I have family over here. Yeah. So I've been over here on holidays a couple of times and I loved it. So in 2014, I got the chance to go and I was like, I'll try this out. Tried it for 6 months from October 2014 till around April 2015. And I absolutely loved it. So when I got back home, I started out, worked on getting my visa and whatnot for that. And then I came back January 2016 and I've been here ever since then.
What was the motivations for going over and what made you stay?
I was young, free and single, as they say, and I felt like I was getting too old for Bray, that kind of way. I was
too old to be down the Martello every weekend.
Well, that was the thing. I found myself giving all my wages to John Duggan, so I was like, I better get out and sort something out. So I came over here and I loved it, and then I was like, that place is for me. And then ever since, it's just been great over here. Other than these knocks, it has been brilliant.
Yeah, and your wife is from New Jersey as well, isn't she?
She's from California. She's from San Francisco. Yeah. She's from. So I met her in the city after a few weeks of living here, and then we've just been together ever since. So
yeah, and so you'd consider that home nearly now, would you?
I don't think you can ever take Ireland out of home. Every time I think of home, I think of Ireland. But yeah, you're right. I do think here now. It's because I have my little lad here. I have the missus. But we're always looking at where we want to really go permanently. So it's kind of like I've been here, nearly 10 years now. I've been in the same apartment here for close to 9 years. So yeah, this is home for me right now. But you can never take away Bray as being your home, right?
Yeah. The Martello as your home.
No, stop. Every time I'm home, I have to have a drink in there. All right.
So I suppose then, getting into that context, let's talk a little bit about the Instagram page that you made. Can you talk a little bit about what type of cancer you're fighting, what treatments you've been through, and even going back to a little bit to when you were first diagnosed and what that experience was like?
So it would have been 2022 in and around February 2022, the first thing I noticed of it was, it's actually mad. It is. This is like, when you get a feeling about something, which, people kind of like, he's probably saying that after the fact, but when you get a feeling about something, I had this warm rush of blood through my leg one day when I was sitting there watching television. And it happened a couple of times. And it's like as if it was a few inches long of a vein that was just flowing around, just warm blood, mental like this. I never really told anyone this, but I was sitting there and that happened to me one day. And I was like, what's that? And it kept happening this one day. And when you go on Google and you start being a doctor on Google and checking things. And I found this one thing that said, it can be like a sign of cancer. Now, I can't exactly remember what it said, but it was something to do with cancer. And I was like, oh, God, please don't be giving me that sort of thing, I'm not really thinking anything of it. And a few days later, I was driving to work and I could feel something in the back of my mouth, where your tonsils are.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel something at the very back, something you wouldn't really normally notice. It was just driving and just in a world of my own. And I was like, what's that? Didn't think much of it. Got to work, got home that night, was watching television, about to go to bed, and I noticed it again. And I said, I must have a look at what is that. So I looked in the mirror and I could see it actually looked like a tumor right at the back of my mouth. Like that's it. I don't know how to describe it other than it was my idea of what a tumor looked like. And I've said, oh God, what is this? So I have really good health insurance over here. So straight away that morning, I called up and said, I want to come in and be seen. I have something in the back of my neck I wanted to get looked at. So they seen me that day, and she basically said it was an infected tonsil, and she put me on antibiotics. And I said, are you sure that's all it is now? And she's like, yeah. I said, grand. Didn't think much of it. Done a week of antibiotics. I still had the lump in the back of the neck. It was still there. So the lad who sits next to me in work, he's just about to retire, and his two brothers have just got cancer at this point. And one of them got throat cancer. So he says to me, how's your throat? And I said, that thing's still there, but I Googled it and it says it's a gland and it can still stay swollen even after infection has been cleared up. And he said, no, don't mess around with that. My brother has throat cancer, and, get yourself back in there and check that out. I go, you know what? You're right. Actually, I'll give them a call and let them know it's still swollen. So I called the doctor and she said, you know what? Go and see an ENT just to be sure. So within that couple of days that I had my appointment set up for the ENT, I noticed that my lymph node, well, I didn't know it was a lymph node at the time. I just felt a lump on the side of my neck, on the outside here. And I said, geez, that feels a little bit hard there. What's going on there? So when I went into the ENT, he checked around and he felt the hard piece on me neck, and he goes, this is concerning. So what started off as what I thought was an infected tonsil turned into seeing the ENT, then going for a biopsy and ultrasounds and everything else. And everything started leaning towards it being cancer. Yeah. But in your mind, you don't really feel like you're getting cancer. For some reason, it's just like, no, it's not going to be that. That's in your head. It's like, no, it's not going to be that. It's not going to happen to me, And I remember he called me one night, and I had just had Tommy. Tommy was about 6 months old at this point. So Heidi was upstairs putting him down. I was ran downstairs to just throw the rubbish out. And I got a call as I was on my way back to the house. And it was him. And he basically just said, listen, it looks like it could be cancer. We have to do some more tests. So, you got to enjoy your life while you're healthy. That's what he said. And I'm like, Jesus, hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember coming up here and I was in shock. I told the missus about it. Two of us had a good cry. We didn't know what to do. Two of us sitting here with a 6-month-old just put down to bed. We didn't know what was going on. So I had a few more tests to diagnose exactly what it was. And this was in a place called Summit Medical, which was my primary care hospital. It's not a cancer-specific treatment center. It's just a primary care. So he had sent me to, when they found out what it was and they knew it was cancer, they kind of said I had caught it early, and it was one that's very treatable. So that was kind of good news, And he had sent me to a surgeon in Summit Medical. But when I went in there, it felt like I was going back in time with the hospital. I was like, Jesus, this is like, I just don't feel comfortable in here, And this doctor even said, look, you're young. you should go to a cancer treatment center. Get yourself into a good facility because you're young and get this dealt with. So he was even telling me not to go there, you know? So luckily enough, a friend of mine, his girlfriend at the time, it's his wife now, but she is a nurse in MSK, which is like one of the biggest cancer treatment facilities in America. They're known for being one of the best, you know? So she got me an appointment in there. And the day I walked in, I remember walking in, I was like walking into the future. The way the place was, it was like a 5-star hotel. And I get in there and it was a doctor called Dr. Cracchiola. Dr. Cracchiola, she was brilliant. I get in there, her and her nurse are in the room. She comes in and she's all business, but she's in a calming way. She's all business. Like she knows what she's talking about. And straight away, she's like, gives a look. So she has a look in your neck. She goes through your scans, she's had to go through all this and said, right, well, this is what we think you have, but we like to do all our testing in-house. Would you let me take a biopsy? And I'm going, yeah, work away. And she's like, I mean right now, can I take a biopsy right now? And I go, what do you mean? She's like, well, I'm just going to clip a bit of your tumor. And you screaming for blood. And I said, well, obviously I don't like it, you know, but look, go ahead, because otherwise you're waiting weeks to get in and do all these things. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead, do what you got to do. So she numbs your throat, snips a bit out, a little bit of blood, nothing major. And then they're able to test that in there in MSK, and they've better testing than what I was led to believe is they've better testing than kind of anywhere in the world. So they're able to get right down into exactly what type of cancer this is. And it was a cancer called HPV positive. So we all have, not we all, about 90% of us have HPV, the virus in your body, human papilloma virus or whatever. So I never knew I had anything. I didn't know I had this in my system. Just, you know, it is what it is. And she was able to test that, and she was able to say that's what it is. That stems from the human papilloma virus. HPV, I think it's called HPV positive 16, I think is the name of it. And that then turned into a squamous cell carcinoma, is what it was. That's the cancer we were looking at. So she had a very good treatment plan for it. They actually had a clinical trial on at the time. And when you're in MSK, they constantly have clinical trials, which is brilliant, because the way a clinical trial works is if they use treatments A, B, C, and D to get rid of something, on the next trial, they'll only use A, B, and C and see if it'll still have the same effect as A, B, C, and D, if you get me. So they kind of are trying to knock down the amount of treatment you keep having to do to treat the same sort of cancers. And then obviously they collect all the data on it, and they can see what works with what type of people and what type of cancer. So this one, the typical treatment for me, for my type of cancer, would have been 7 weeks of radiation, which is 35 days. So 5 days at the weekend off, 5 days, 35 days of that, and 3 2-day sessions of chemotherapy. So the trial of that would have been 3 weeks of radiation, so 15 treatments, and it would have been 2 2-day sessions of chemotherapy, significantly knocking down the amount of treatment you have to do and really helping your body recover after and whatnot. Very little side effects from this sort of treatment. So I got stuck into that. We got going on it. I remember the first day going over, I drove in, went in, you go in this big machine. You're in there for about 10 minutes. It's going around your body, and it focuses here. Oh, by the way, at the time, it was the tonsil. That was the original part of the cancer. So that's where we were starting on. Yeah. It had spread to 2 lymph nodes. One was the hard one that I felt. And on a subsequent scan, they found a smaller one just down below. So it was starting to spread. So
can I ask you a quick question? What was the time frame from when you initially got that result that like definitively you have cancer to you actually being in that treatment center?
It would have been about a month so it would have been about 7-8 weeks from when I done my very first went in and they said it was an infection. It would have been about a month from when they knew it was cancer, because then they plan it out. About 3 weeks to a month.
Okay, so they moved pretty quick.
Oh, this hospital is, if I went in there on a Monday with something, they'd have you booked in the following week. Yeah. For it's brilliant. It really takes the nerves out of it, and the anxiety of it. But it
doesn't really give you any kind of like I know obviously it can't, but like you don't really have much time to process what's really going on in your life.
No, you don't. You just are like straight in there. Yeah. You know what it is though? Your mind, well, my mind anyway, and I hope a lot of people get like that, is my mind goes into battle mode. It's like me against the cancer. I'm like, my doctors tell me they need to do something. I'm like, yeah, do it straight away. Let's go in there now. Let's get it done. Even the surgeries and all that, when you go in, the first ones you do, you're like, oh my God, I got to go in here now. They're going to open me up. And now I'm like, get in there, open it up, get it out of me, do what you got to do, And then I'll deal with the side effects after, and I'll deal with the physical therapy after, and I'll deal with getting back to normal. But you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it had gone down to the tree. It was in tree. Like, it was in the tonsil, the lymph node, and then it started to get into another lymph node. So when I went in that day to do the treatment, they basically just, it's a laser beam. You're just inside this big machine. You're strapped. You have to get strapped to the table. So leading up to the radiation, you have to go in and do a what's the name of it? It's like when you're basically getting set up for radiation, and it's like a trial. So you go into the same sort of machine, but you don't get any radiation. But they put this mold on your head. So I had this plastic. It's like a big square sheet of plastic that's hot. It's kind of melted, obviously warm enough that you can take it, not too hot. So it's a little bit harder, but it's melted. It's malleable, if you get me. It's kind of, you put it on your head, and then they have you down on a table, and they start pressing it all the way around your head. And then it gets harder as it cools. And then you have this mold of your head. So when you go in and lie in the radiation machine, they put this mold on you, and there's 4 bolts. So they bolt your head to the table. So if you're claustrophobic, this isn't for you, So they bolt your head to and then they put you into this machine, like a tube radiation machine. They put you in there, and then this laser beam essentially comes down, and they have it marked exactly where it's to go. So the mold is obviously so you can't move your head and you can't move your body. And then the laser beam is able to hit exactly where it needs to hit without causing damage to good cells in the area. So that's essentially what happened. So I remember the first day I went in and I did that. And, I'd already done my mold, and I went in for my very first day of radiation. And I went to work that day. I drove in there after work. And then I drove out and left. You don't even notice it. You don't feel it. But what happens with radiation is it keeps adding on. So it's like getting sunburnt on day 1, and then getting sunburnt again on day 2. And then by the end of the week, you're going to really feel that sunburn. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it's like. It's like constantly getting sunburnt in the same spot. And over time, you'll start to notice it. In that machine that they do the radiation, the doctor can actually read. It's like he can do a scan in it as well, and he can kind of see what way it's going, what way the treatment's going. So I did my first week of radiation, and then I had to do chemotherapy. So chemotherapy was obviously new to me. I went in there, and they're like, they have loads of water and all there for you. They want you to keep urinating. They're like, you got to get it through your kidneys and everything. So I'm on a mission then to drink as much water as I can and get this thing out of my system. I nearly breaking records in there for the amount of water I drank to get it out of me. But that was on the first one. Come the second day of doing that that chemotherapy, it's like you're on heroin. You really are. You're kind of out of it. And come the very third session at the end, you're a different person altogether. So the day you go in, you're fresh, but after it's doing its job and really taking it out of it, you really do feel it, and it's really like you're on heroin at that point.
Is there different types of chemo?
There is. There's all different. Like for instance, that one I did then was called cisplatin. That was the name of it, and the one I'm doing now, it's called Paxlovid, I think is the name of it. There's 2. There's 2 I'm on right now, and one is a chemo and one's immunotherapy. So they put the both of them into your body at the same time. I think it's called Paxlovid or begins with a C. There's another one, but there's loads of different types. So like women with breast cancer do a different one.
Yes. And is there different types of, in terms of the chemo, is there different types of like how much it takes out of you throughout?
Yeah, like this one now, like the side effects to the one I did before. It really just had me felt like I was dying. Like I between that and the radiation on the neck, I couldn't eat. Yeah. So when you after a week of doing it, you can't eat anymore. Yeah. So you're between not eating and on that, you're not getting the nutrients into you, and you're doing these drugs that are designed to essentially kill you if they kept on going. Yeah. So The side effects of that was just that was the worst. It just feels like you're dying. But the side effects of this one is bad acne. So a really good sign that the drug is working is if you get bad acne. And I did. As soon as I did it, just there like 2 months ago, I got raw red face. The face is still red, but it's not. You ever see teenagers when you went to school and you had the big white pustules all over the head? That's what I was like straight away within 2 weeks of starting this. Now I use a good cleanser that the doctor gives you, and I moisturize it all the time, try and heal it. But all over the face, you get that. You lose your hair. You get the acne all over your chest and arms and your back. So that's there. But the doctor's delighted with that because he's like, this is great. This means it's working. My oncologist is loving the fact that the body's going through this because he can see that it's working. And then on the scan I just did lately, it showed that it knocked it down by over 50%. So, everybody's happy.
Is that a real like powerful reframe? The fact that you're getting all these side effects that are probably uncomfortable and painful, but are also it's the same thing that you would deem as a negative is actually a positive because it's helping to get the outcome that you want.
And that's what I say on the page, turn a negative into a positive. I'm like, bring it on. If I'd rather see that, and I'd rather get the side effects now, because the immunotherapy I was on for about a year and a half there, I didn't really get any side effects from that. It was grand. Yeah. I would go into work in the morning, do my work. I'd head in, do my immunotherapy. I could go back to work that afternoon if I wanted to, I didn't feel anything really. The odd time a little bit tired, that was about it. And that concerned me because I'm like, well, if I'm feeling this good, is the cancer still comfortable in there? Well, obviously it's great that you don't feel that bad, but you're still in your head thinking, what way is the cancer feeling? Is that just like living the life in there?
So then did you get the all clear and then the cancer came back?
So what happened was I did the 35 days of the radiation. Initially I was supposed to do the 15, and this I was on the trial. Now the trial at that point for the initial part of it 3 years ago, the trial was just a shorter version of the standard of care. Now the standard of care was the 7 weeks, the trial was 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, they test you. After 2 weeks, they test you for a thing called hypoxia. Now, I can't remember if you have to have it or you don't have to have it. I just remember I had the correct result to be on the trial and stay on the trial. It just makes it harder for the cancer to survive or something like that. So I had tested the right way for that. That was good. But I think I went in on the Wednesday, and the Friday, my doctor calls me, my radiologist, and said, listen, I know you think you're only doing the 3 weeks, but we have to continue you on for the 7 weeks. Now, at this point, I am shattered. I'm defeated. It's like my first time going through anything like this. I am feeling like, thank God it's only 3 weeks, because I said it to my missus in the hospital, thank God it's only 3 weeks. I wouldn't be able for 7 weeks, right? I, in my head, fully believed I would not be able for 7 weeks because that's how bad it started to get. But he said, you have to do the 7 weeks. He said, we're not getting results. He said, it's extremely rare what's happening to you, but we're not getting the results that we need. For such a common cancer, I was getting the extremely rare side of things. And it happened a couple of times. I'll fill you in a bit more. So he was like, you're going to have to do it. And I was just defeated at that point, like, no way. But anyway, what happens is you lift yourself up and you say, you know what, I got to do it. And that's it. There's nothing you can do. It's either don't do it and let the cancer take you out, or keep on going and get it done. But that weekend then, I was 2 weeks in. That weekend, I was downstairs in my living room. And I said to them, I'm going up to bed. It was about 9:30 on the Saturday night. And my mother was here. My auntie and my uncle had called in. My missus was here, the four of them. And little lad was in bed. And I went up and I got into bed myself. And I woke up about a half an hour later, and it felt like a cup of tea was kind of pouring out of my mouth. That's what it felt like. And I was like, what is that? So it was dark in the room, but I was wearing a white t-shirt. So I got up and I looked, and I could just see all these stains on my t-shirt, blood stains. You can see the dark shade. I go, what is that? So I got up and I turned the light on. There was blood just gushing out of my mouth, just everywhere. So I called downstairs, went into the bathroom, my blood was just pouring into the sink, and I called downstairs. So they all come up, obviously getting a fright, seeing me the way I am. Turns out that when you're getting the radiation, it can destroy like stuff in its path, essentially. And it was after affecting the artery in my neck. So what happened is the artery got weaker. So I don't think they know if it was the artery getting weaker or the tumor that was pressing on it and some way that it stopped, that it ripped it. So the artery basically started pumping blood out of me neck. So I got rushed into hospital. And what I thought was just going in and getting something sewed up or whatever. They put me in an induced coma for a few days. And then they sent me into, because I could drown essentially in the blood because where it was. So when I went in, the doctor was like, he filled me in with all this jargon. This is a different hospital altogether. You're not going into your cancer hospital now. You're going into the emergency room.
Yeah.
So he filled me in with all this doctor jargon. And he said, did you get all that? And I said, no. And he goes, what part? I said, none of it. I don't know what you said there. Like, say it in layman's terms so I know what you're saying. And he said, basically, your blood is going to keep filling up and we need to clear that airway. And we need to protect your airway so that you essentially don't drown in your own blood, So they did that. And the mad thing, another rare thing that happened when they did that, is they knock you out and they basically paralyze you, when you're going into surgery. But I wasn't fully knocked out, but I was paralyzed. You ever see that movie where they do the heart surgery and your man's awake for it? Yeah. That kind of thing. That happened to me, right? But I was about.
So could you not be vocal? You wouldn't have been able to be vocal. No,
you can't do anything. You're lying there and they're talking. I was in the surgery room and I remember there was a woman and two men, and they were in the room and they have me move my head this way and that way, and they're stuffing stuff down my neck. And it's like I'm choking, I can't breathe, and I'm screaming at the top of my voice, but nothing's coming out. Like I'm screaming and I'm trying to say, I'm still awake. I'm still awake. I'm still awake. And I was choking, because they're putting the stuff in or whatever. It was horrible. But then I must have just knocked out then. Yeah. So eventually then I woke up and this was in New Jersey. I woke up and I was in New York. Next to my cancer hospital, I was in the ICU in what's the name of the hospital? I can't remember the name of it now, but it was in the hospital next to it anyway, a big hospital in there. And I was in there for a few days, and they had to go in and embolize the artery, which is basically block the artery or tie it in a knot. Whatever way they do it, they block it up. But they went in the first time and they did it, and it's a big surgery and whatnot. I remember waking up and I had this patch on my groin, like a big plaster. I thought it was just something from up here that fell down there. But turns out, so my wife says, no, they open you up in your groin to go into your artery there. And then they go all the way up with like a fishing rod, all the way up through into where they need to go. And they did it and they embolized it. But I was sitting there in the hospital bed, still feeling absolutely horrible. Yeah. And my brother was over at the time, and the wife's in the room. And I could feel like food poisoning is what it felt like. And I was lying on the bed and I just said, don't feel right. Now, at this point, you're weak as a kitten as well. You're not yourself at all. And I was like, I don't feel right. I don't feel right. And next minute, I just got sick and it was just blood that came out. I was like jelly. It was disgusting. I'll never forget the smell of it. It was horrible. It was turning out the blood was still dripping down. And it was going into my stomach. My stomach was trying to digest it or whatever way it was working. So then when I got sick, it was just the whole thing. So my missus, she lost it. She went because she was trying to tell them that there was something got.
They got the fright of their life.
Oh, I remember Andrew's face. He was in shock, complete shock. So my missus was like, she went down and she said to them, there's something still going on here. And the guy was like, oh, well, they still kind of bleed when this happens and whatnot. The doctor was. And she said, no way, look at how much blood. And he's like, it is a bit much blood in fairness. So he went and got the head guy. And it took hours. And the head guy comes down and he's like, oh, yeah, that is a lot of blood. There is still a lot of blood there. Basically, they had to go in again. And I wasn't able for it because when you get it done and you're finished, they took the thing out and they go to you basically get sick. And they have this big tube in your mouth. And you have to get sick and they pull it and you can feel it inside your chest just pulling out because it's like a rib tube. And you feel, it was horrible. And all this blood coming out and everything. It was just disgusting. They take you into a room on your own as well. Nobody's allowed in there, just you and a doctor, and they just do it. So they were like, you have to do it again. And I said to the missus, at this point, I'm so weak. I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like, this is, I just want to go to sleep and I don't want to wake up. That was my mindset. And it's the only time I think I've ever felt like that through this whole thing. Yeah. I just felt like, put me asleep and let me go to sleep.
Because I was going to say to you, like the pressure to probably even like just stay positive in front of your friends and family.
Oh,
you know
at
what I
that
mean?
point, I wasn't. At that point,
yeah.
I was arguing with everyone. I had doctors and that. Like, I couldn't talk. I had this tube in my mouth at the time, so I was writing stuff down. I mean, this has kept like all the pages. I was writing stuff down, giving out to everybody to get this sorted. You know, you're just not yourself. You know, so they had to go back in again. And I remember I was sitting there. Just everybody left the room. It was only me and the missus, and she turned around. She was upset and she said, "You have to do this. We have a 6-month-old at home." You know, she filled me in with a few home truths, and that just spurred me on where I just something clicked and I was like, "You're dead right. You're dead right. I gotta do this." So it just hit me head there. I was like, nobody can do this for you. Like, nobody is able to do this for you. Only you are. So you have to do it. So I was like, what's the point in bitching and moaning about it? Let's get it done. Yeah. So I said to them, okay, you can go in again. So they went in again. They went up, they embolized some more. It was only on the way out. It was another rare occurrence that whatever way this artery was going, it was feeding the tumor as well. And the doctor had said, I could have this a little bit wrong, but the doctor said whatever way that was working was something they hadn't seen before. So luckily enough, on the way out, the guy that was doing it noticed something on the way out, and he was able to go up in there and he found exactly what he needed to find. So he was able to embolize exactly what he needed to embolize, and he got out of there. And then it worked. It was like a new man. Then after that, they took it out. I remember the second time them taking the tube out of my mouth, because they're always protecting the airway. So they have this big, nearly like a vacuum hose down your throat, you know. And he pulled it out, and there was no blood. There was nothing. It was like night and day from what I had gone through. And I remember thinking, right, that's good. That's a good one. We're after getting that now. And then I got transferred from there over to MSK, which is the cancer hospital. That's where you want to be when you're getting this. And straight away, because I had a week off now from treatment because I was at to be in the ICU, straight away they were all over me again when I got there. They want to go straight back into radiation, straight back into chemo. And again, you're weak as a kitten at this point, but the cancer is not stopping. That cancer is going to keep on growing. So you just have to go, all right, I'll do it. So I spent about 8 days, I think 8 days in total between the two of them. I am not 100% sure, but it was in around 8 days between the two of them that I was in before I got to come home again, you know? And that was only 2 weeks into it all. So it was quite the journey.
There must be at this stage, like every time they say it again, okay, more chemo. There must be this, like this.
Oh, yeah.
Like
every week.
and then it's like, okay, then like acceptance has to come into play, and then it's like 100%. You said it on one of your videos, and I really loved it. It was like you said, like you had this kind of push and pull between I'm gonna kick the shit out of cancer, and I'm gonna be motivated to beat this thing, versus them other days where it's like, allow yourself to feel sorry for yourself, and trying to kind of balance them two, which you're probably trying to balance them two every single day. It's like
yeah, definitely. You're 100%. It's it is a bit of tug of war here. Like, but me right now, my mindset is really solid. Like right now, but it wasn't always like that. So you do get the days. I did get the days where I just like, oh, why me? What is this? And I have to get up out of bed, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and it's just like, I don't want to do anything. Like, what's the point? But then the other side of it is, you do get that where you're like, oh no, I get to do this, and I'm going to do this to kill this off, and I'm over, like, I'm in the best hospital around. I'm so fortunate to be there. Like, there's so much stuff that I count me blessings for. Like, one is the fact that I moved here in the first place, and because I honestly think if I was at home with the cancer I have, the way it spread, I think I'd be dead by now. I honestly believe that if I was back at home, I'm not saying anyone else getting treated back home, I'm just saying the way when mine was found.
It's your personal experience.
It doesn't mean anyone back home is going to get bad treatment. I'm not saying that. I just think how quick they were over here to treat, and the facilities that they were able to find these things a little bit sooner. and they were able to deal with them. You know, the facility itself is just for cancer. It's just for cancer treatment. So even the people dealing with me are only dealing with that type of cancer. They're not dealing with all cancers. So they kind of have seen everything at this point, you know.
And this was one of the questions that I was going to ask, and you've almost touched on it there a lot anyway. And it was especially for anyone who's listening to this who might be newly diagnosed, because there will be people listening to this who will be like, "Oh, I want to listen to that because this will resonate with what I'm doing." And it was basically to ask you about like practical tips and advice you would have for people who are kind of newly diagnosed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So someone that's newly diagnosed, you know, the first thing is really you gotta look at your diet as well. That's a big thing in this. I'm not saying sugar causes it or sugar doesn't cause it, but cut it out. Cut alcohol out. Cut the sugar out. Start eating healthy. You know what I mean? Over there, I don't know how quick they are. I seem to get the impression that in Ireland they're a little bit longer on getting lads in and getting people in and dealing with. So really, in the meantime, you have to do your own. You have to help your body out itself. You know what I mean? Your bit of exercise, your bit of eating right, and all that. But all of that stuff is kind of more preventative. So if you're at the being recently diagnosed with it, you're going to have to get into those hospitals straight away. You're going to have to, you know, be your own advocate to get these treated straight away, because the longer you leave things, cancer just keeps on. It keeps on growing. It's not going to stop for you, you know.
How quickly were you to like accept that, like, all right, this is what it is, and get into kind of action mode with it?
I remember. Well, those first few weeks were a little bit all over the place, because in your mind you kind of don't believe that you have it.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, were you in any kind of denial about it?
It wasn't really denial. It was kind of like, you know, when something bad happens, you're like, oh, that wouldn't happen to me, kind of thing. Like in your head, you're like something happens and you see it in the newspaper, like, oh, that's up to happen to them. That would never happen down here, kind of. It's kind of in your head where like, oh, it's not going to happen to me. You just think like that for the start, and then you start getting hit with the realization that no, this is you, like this is something you have to deal with. And I think when it first happened, your initial thought is, why me? What is going on? I've a young child. I'm only, at the time I was 35. I'm like, how is this happening to me? You know, with everything going on, this should be happening to me.
Yeah,
you know,
you've always looked after yourself. You've been fit. You've been active. You've been healthy.
Yeah, that's the thing. And that's the thing, because it's basically stemmed from an infection that I didn't even know I ever had. I never knew I had it. It's an infection that was in my body, and then when you leave it, it can turn into cancer cells. Basically, with HPV, your body just clears it out. People like 96% of people in the world or something, if I have the numbers right, have HPV in their body. You know what I mean? It's like having a wart in your finger or that type of virus. So, if you have that, your immune system is going to clear it out, and that's what happens. But the analogy that was used for me is basically one of those cells can camp up somewhere. You don't even know you have it. And then all of a sudden, I could have had this for 20 years.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it decides to come out and it starts to go as a cancer. And you didn't even know that you had the thing to start off with. You know what I mean?
Isn't it good that you had that intuition to be like, right, this actually doesn't, like, because you know the way loads of people put off going to a hospital or going to the doctor.
Oh yeah,
they feel something
big Irish thing.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? It's like, that's probably nothing. I'll just leave it, and we wait until we definitely know something's wrong.
Oh yeah. Well, I wouldn't have went back into that ENT only for the lad beside me. His two brothers had it. I wouldn't have went back in there. I went on Google because I said to my missus said, how's that infection? Like a day or two into it. I said, oh yeah, it looks like it's getting a bit better, but it's still there. And I went on Google and just seeing that is normal. At the time, I remember reading it and it was like, because the tonsil is a gland, something to do with a gland there anyway, that it can stay swollen even after the infection clears up. I said to myself, all right, that's grand. And only for the guy beside me, his brother had the exact same cancer I had. Because it's actually, it's exploding around the world, this type of cancer as well. So he was going through the same treatment, the exact same thing. And he was in his 50s. And this lad, the lad next to me was like, you better go get that looked at, you better go just make sure. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I have good health insurance. I'll just go in. It's not going to cost me anything. I'll just go in and make sure that we're on the same page with the doctor. So luckily enough, she just said, go to the ENT, and then it just stemmed from there,
And what's the action plan now? What needs to happen right now or in the next coming weeks and months for you to be?
So I'll fill you in a bit more than after. So when I went through the 7 weeks of the treatment, during that, towards the end of that, I wasn't eating anymore. I had to get a feeding tube in. So basically I had to go back into the hospital again I was in there for about 8 days, what should have been a 1 day thing. I was supposed to go in, they slice you in the middle of your stomach, and they put this tube right into where your food would go, essentially, bypassing your throat. And then they give you these liquids, like they're really like milk cartons, and you pour them in. You have to drink about 8 of them a day. I could only ever get, I think the max I got down was 7 down there. And at the start, when you start doing it, you're getting sick all the time because you're putting it in. Your body's not able for it. It's just full of vitamins and nutrients. Yeah. But when I went in to get this done, here's another rarity that happened to me. The doctor called me a special patient because the amount of stuff that went wrong with my treatment. So I went in to get this done, and you go in there that morning, they do it, they open you up, they put the tube in and everything else. You wake up and you have a tube in your stomach just hanging out. And that's it. Later on that night or the next day, I can't remember what it was, I was in the room, in my hospital room, and I just felt I was like vibrating in the bed. I felt nauseous and I was vibrating. I didn't know what was going on, and it gradually kept getting worse. And I'm like, what is happening here? So I said to the doctor, oh, there's something wrong here. Eventually, I'm rattling in the bed, like proper rattling. So they knew something was up. So my dad came in to visit me. He was over at the time. He comes in to visit me. He walks into the room. There's like 3 or 4 doctors around me, nurses around me. I'm vibrating on the bed. He nearly had a heart attack. Turns out when they were doing the feeding tube, some bacteria from my stomach got into my blood system. So it started to give me an infection. And I was basically had a blood infection, and I was rattling in the bed with that. So they had to keep coming in. They keep coming in. They take the blood out of you. They're taking blood cultures. Someone that knows about this stuff would know a lot more than me. They're basically taking the blood out, and they keep testing it with all these antibiotics. And in the meantime, they're giving you an antibiotic that they think will work through a drip. So they found one anyway that was working on my blood, but I had to stay there and be monitored for a bit longer. So that's why I ended up in there for like a week again, when I should have only been there for a day. And they found the one that works, and then they're able to put that into tablet form, and then they send you home with that, and then you clear up the infection, So that happened. And then I kept on going with my treatment anyway. Every day you're still going down for your treatment. But it's crazy in a hospital. For anyone that has to get stuck in a hospital, there's a thing called sundown syndrome, I believe is the name of it. I was in there. I must have now I'm in the same room. I'm looking at the same wall, and I still have it in my head. The same wall, the wallpaper, the TV up in the corner, the desk beside me, the chair there, the small chair at the end of it. I still know exactly what was in that room because I was there for 8 days. I know exactly how the whole thing looks. But after so many days of being in there, you could nearly drive yourself insane. So I was in there and I was grand. Like I remember watching Seinfeld on the iPad and watching Friends on the iPad, trying to watch good stuff, I think I even watched Saved by the Bell while I was in there as well. I had that on and stuff from your childhood, anything to keep you happy, Yeah. And it got to the point where I just couldn't be in there. All of a sudden one day I was like, I can't be in here anymore. Now in my head, I was going to get up out of that bed with tubes and all hanging me, walk down, get one of them yellow taxis in the middle of New York and drop me straight back to New Jersey. So I just something took over me and I couldn't be in there. It was like a panic attack that was setting in my mind because I was just looking at the same walls, and I never experienced anything like that before, So I said it to the doctor, I need to go. And I remember I rang me missus and I said, get the car, get in here, pick me up. I'm out of here now. I'm leaving. And she's like, what are you talking about? You're getting treated in there. You have to start. No, I can't be in here anymore. I want to go home. I need to be out of here. You're just so worked up and, your body is all over the place. And she was like, no way, no way. So she was calling the family. Everybody was up the walls thinking I'm about to leave. So they got in anyway. And she specifically came in and didn't bring the car with her. She got the train in. She wouldn't bring the car in. But it didn't bother me. I would have went down and jumped in one of them cabs and been on my way home. I would have ripped everything out. So I told the nurses and everything that there's something going on. I have to get out of here. I had to go down and do treatment. And it turns out this day I had to do a longer day of radiation, kind of like where they do a little mini scan on you while you're doing it. And it would happen to be this day that I have to get into this claustrophobic machine on this day. So I'm in there for about 15 minutes. They're like, do you want some music? And I said, put some Dermot Kennedy on there, will you? And they're looking around for who Dermot Kennedy is. And I'm sitting in the machine. It gets to about 10 minutes and I go, get me out of here. I have to get out. I was having a panic attack. Yeah. So I got up to the room. I got up to my room and just started bawling, crying in the room. I don't know what was going on. I'm vibrating on the bed. I'm crying. I'm like, I don't know what's happening here. I need to be out of this building now. And the nurse comes in and she goes, look, with head and neck cancers are very, very hard to go through because, you know, they limit you being able to eat, being able to talk. You know, they kind of like if you had it in your leg, you can still eat, you can still talk, you still have a bit of socializing in you. This was just awful, you know, it was horrible. And they're constantly down your neck. Nobody likes anyone going into their mouth and down their neck. So they gave me I think it was called an Ativan, like a Xanax or something. They basically, my mate's a doctor, he said it's like a happy pill. So they gave me one of them and I knocked out on the bed and I woke up and I was like a new man. I went down, hopped in the machine, done me 15 minutes, went back up. Doctor says, yeah, you're good. You can go. We got your antibiotic in a tablet form for you and everything. I went there, left there with 2 big bags of drugs that they give you to treat you. And my auntie came in there and my auntie, my uncle, and picked me up and I went home, which was, you know, it was like a big win for me mentally and physically and everything. I got to go home to my own bed because each time I go in there, I hadn't seen my son in those days. I never brought him in. So that was killing me. My missus and my sisters and everyone was showing me pictures or videos, and I just couldn't handle it. Like I couldn't handle seeing him because he's only 6 months. These are the times when you're meant to be with him all the time and showing him everything, you know.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's not just physically draining on you. It's emotionally draining on you.
Oh, the emotional side of it is something else. Yeah, that really wiped me out. But then when I got home, it was like, you know, you haven't got a care in the world. You get to see him. You get to sit down with him. And he doesn't know what's going on. He's so young. He's never going to remember that. But you remember it, you know. Like it's hard as a man to leave your missus there with the child on her own. She's fending for herself, kind of. But luckily enough, I have very, very, very good family and very, very, very good friends. And also, she was well looked after in a sense, you know. But she was a trooper too, so.
Can I ask you a question off the back of that? Do you think that like your view or perspective on life has changed from going through all this?
Oh, without a doubt. You ever want to realize how short life is? Go through something like that. You ever want to? You're ever worrying about these little things that are just like I'm a fecker from driving the car and someone cut you off or something and you're like, what are you doing? The littlest things I don't care about anymore. Probably annoys the wife as well sometimes because I just don't care about these little things. It's like, but it's family and it's good friends. It's stuff like that I care about now. You know, I've said this before, we all have an expiry date. I got to realize that I have one a lot sooner than a lot of people because, you know, before that I was living forever in my head. You know, I wasn't going anywhere. So now it's like every day I wake up is a good day. You know, every day I can get up out of bed and I go and do anything. If I can go down, get in the car, drive out, it's a good day already because I can do that. Because my level of how low things can go has dropped dramatically. You know, I have been in positions where I couldn't pick up my child, where I couldn't get out of bed, where I was sick all day, you know, because of this, where I was no use to anyone. You feel like a hindrance to people at that point. So me being able to get up and go down and make me eggs and a bit of toast and go for a walk and play with my son.
It's such a simple concept, but like when you have your health, it's like it's the one thing that you just take for granted, and it's like all these little things that you can do, like getting up and having breakfast and going for a walk and all these things, you do take them for granted.
100%. And I remember being in that one of the biggest things, because they hit you with radiation here in your neck, and your what happens is all your taste buds and all go, like they're completely gone. So after 2 weeks, you can't really taste anything. Then you can't eat anything. You know, you're not even getting water down your throat is a task. You know, so when all your taste buds and all are gone, and you can't taste anything, you get all I was getting all these cravings in the hospital. One of them was I wanted a big carvery back home. I was just like, I want that. Other one was like Chinese. I wanted to have a Chinese. But and I love cheesecake. I love cheesecake, right? Oh yeah. And then in the hospital, I had menu. They bring you up a menu and you pick your meals throughout the day. But I couldn't eat anything. I used to get a slice of cheesecake up to the room and I'd sit there and smell it, because if I was to eat it, it just was like toothpaste in your mouth or something. It was like, it was like just that paste, because your mouth was so dry as well. So you weren't able to appreciate anything like that. But then after you get through it all, and after you're finished with all that, your taste buds are still gone. And some people lose their taste for a long time, Now, luckily enough with me, my taste buds came back within a few months after finishing, because everything I put in my mouth after finishing treatment tasted like salt. So the doctor said that's a good sign. They're like, that means your taste buds are coming back. So there's two ways it goes. People either taste the salt or people either taste the sweet. One or the other. That's how your taste buds start to come back, and eventually then mine would come back. And I love a slice of pizza from down the road there. It's New Jersey pizza, and it just felt like I was eating salt. And then you kind of judge it on that. A while later, it's a bit better, and now I can taste everything again, thank God, because I thought I was going to lose that. And I love me food, so that would have been the worst thing that could have happened.
That's exactly it as well. It's like people take for granted even something small like that. Is like the fact that you're able to taste this and enjoy this and appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
It's all these little small things as well. You also talked about we all have our kind of a deadline, and I know you spoke about that on a video. Like, have you found any kind of like peace or acceptance in facing your own mortality to a degree? Because I know it's something
definitely.
that we don't like to think about or talk about. Like, I know myself, I'd bury my head in the sand and be like, not.
Yeah, nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to think about it. It's not a nice thing to think of. But yeah, because I've kind of faced it so much over the last 3 years, every time I go in for a scan, it's nearly like you're going in to find out you're dying soon or not. You're like, okay, what's going to happen here? Like, and the amount of times I've gone in there and the doctor's been like, I'm so sorry, Thomas, because the scan didn't go right or something. And when they say that to you, you're like, oh my God, I'm dead. I'm dead. But that's what these people do for a living, and they're very good at it. They know they're going to, do their best to get you out of that situation. But yeah, I definitely realized, like, as simple as is how short life is. And it's such a simple concept that not everybody grasps. But I definitely have grasped that now. And I really just, I want to be around for as long as I can. But what with those days, even if it's short, I want to make sure all of those days count. No point in being here as long as you can, but you're not doing anything,
How in your own personal way, how do you think you can make them days count more than you might have done before?
Now, don't get me wrong, you need your rest, especially on going through what I'm going through now. You definitely need your rest, and that could seem like a wasted day, but it's not. A rest is sometimes as good as an exercise, you know what I mean? You need, especially anyone going through, I'm talking to a good few people online, and they feel guilty about having a rest. I'm like, do not feel guilty about having a rest. Your body now is using every bit of its energy to kill those cancer cells. So get up every morning, tell yourself you're going to kill the cancer cells, and let your energy go towards that, because as soon as you're better, you don't want to waste any days. So I find now that one of the big things is travel. I love to go travel. So me and the missus are constantly looking at like different things to do, different places to go. And I want to see as much as the world as possible, right? That's kind of, I think that's nearly the first thing for anyone going through an illness or realizing death, they can be on death's door at any day, is wanting to see the world a bit, So that's one of my biggest things, is kind of looking for different ideas of where to go. The other thing is and it's simple. It's just not being pissed off at things that are not worth your time. Right? So I notice now that even if I have to wait for, like, if I put a piece of toast in and it tells you on the timer, 1 minute and 30 seconds or something. I'm like, there's 1 minute and 30 seconds I'm wasting now waiting for this toast to heat up. That's my mindset now. It's like, I don't like to waste that. I'm like, these all count, because at the end of your life, you'd love for all those wasted minutes to be added on and say, you know what, there you go and do something with that. So it's kind of just as simple as that. And just being a happier person, I definitely notice I'm a much happier person. I was always kind of happy and all, but I had I think I have a bit of an aggressive streak in me too, where I just like would get, young man getting pissed off over stupid things. Yeah. I don't really feel like I get like that. I feel like I've put that to the side, and I say to myself, what is that worth your time? Is that worth being pissed off about? And that kind of thing. And then my little lad's he's getting older, so I'm kind of, when he's a baby, obviously you can't do too much with them. You can just, go for your walks and whatnot. But now he's getting a bit older. I just love to do stuff with him. I love watching him now. He started doing a soccer camp on a Saturday mornings, and I love that. I love seeing him out there doing it, and I can't wait to do more stuff with him. So it's really that. It's really, a couple of things, bit of travel, not getting pissed off as much with people, helping people too. Like talking to people now is like, it's like I'm after finding a whole new lease of life with just being able to talk to people about this stuff, people that are going through it, and just being able to help them. Because when you go through at the start, you don't know what you're expecting. You are just thinking of death. You're just thinking, oh my God, I'm dead here, like of cancer. But no, it doesn't have to mean that. It might just be a life-changing situation for you that you realize how short life is, but you get through it. You might just only have to have a bit of surgery and get through it. So I like talking to people now, and seeing where their mindsets are at, and seeing if I can help them change their mindset. And I'll probably start looking more into that in the future as well. It's maybe do some counseling course or something that helps me talk to people, because I hope when I'm talking to them, that I'm not feeding them crap. I hope I'm giving them what I think would work or whatever, but I hope it's not detrimental to their situation or whatever,
Well, that's why I wanted to get you on as well, is because when you made that page, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense to make that page and to document what you're going through and how that can help other people who are going through similar thing. And you can see it's authentic. Do you know what I mean? You see on social media what's fake and what's real. You know what I mean? What sparked the idea to do that then?
So after going through the first initial treatment, the 7 weeks, way back when, and then this is kind of a bit of a longer story now, but I knew even then, everybody was always asking me how you are, how you're doing, which is, great. And some people don't want to keep reaching out, even though they want to know how you're doing every day. So at the time, I was like, I could set up a page, but I had no energy. I had no energy. I looked in a bad way. I didn't look at all like, I just wasn't healthy. There was no time to do that at the time. It was constantly fighting this battle, just constantly trying to get better. No energy to maintain a page. Then when I finished with that treatment, I felt like everybody knew about it. There was a GoFundMe. Everybody chipped in. I had this
How did you feel about that, by the way?
I was shocked to see it out there, but it was a massive, massive help, because not that I didn't have the money, like I had the money there to help, like to get through my stuff, but it was nice to not have to use all your savings and stuff to get through cancer. You get me? So even with good health insurance, cancer, like I'm probably up to $500,000 with the amount of treatments I've gone through. But luckily enough, the health insurance covers most of it, so I was able to use that for a lot of that, which was great. It was great. You know what I mean? It really was a massive help. And and I'm thankful to everyone. At the time I had let everyone know, but yeah, you're thankful to everyone. The amount of people that chipped in, the amount of people that sent you messages, the awareness it brought to the situation, and the amount of good vibes. I honestly think the good vibes help you through all that as well. People send you messages, you get through it. Like you do it, you read that, registers, and you're like, I will get through this. I am going to get better. So it really was good. But what was I saying there? So that at the time when I had finished up the 7 weeks, and then I started to go through it, and everybody's asking you, and I'm talking to everyone. So kind of like was around then, but I wasn't going through anything at that point. I was kind of on my journey to get better. So I was working out. I think at the time, Keane Bourne was helping me out. I was working out. I was doing a few exercises at home, and I got myself in, I was getting myself in good nick. Yeah. I felt great again, It was one of the things the doctor said to me at the very start. He said, you'll never be the same, but you'll be about, he said, we'll get you to about 90%. And I said in my head, the way I took that was, well, I don't feel like I'm 100% right now anyway. So even if I get to 90%, I feel like that's going to be more than what I am now. So that was my mindset. I'm going to make myself better than I am now. Like, I'm going to get myself worked up, get my energy back, get strong, and be a better version of what I am right now. That just straight away, that was how I said I'd do it. So I did. I started to work out, started to eat right, started to work out with Keane and doing my workouts here and going for me runs and whatnot and feeling good. And this is a mad story as well. I was feeling this little, there's a thing called neuropathy you get when you do chemo. And it's like, I don't know if you know about it. It's like your nerves it can be anywhere. Like, so nerves in my hands, my hands go dead a little bit and things like that. So the chemo can cause a bit of neuropathy. So when I went in, I was going in for a checkup with my radiologist, and I said to him, look, I'm getting a bit of the neuropathy in my hand. And he said, well, let's do a scan, make sure there's no tumor on your spine. Now, they say all this stuff like it's so blasé, like, let's just make sure. And I'm like, hold on a minute, what? So it's like getting a kick in the gut, like, even though he's like, let's just make sure. I'm like, now I've got a week before this scan of worrying. If I tell the missus, she's going to be up the walls worried. So he was like, let's just make sure there's nothing there, like very blasé. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do that. All right. Anyway, worried to death then over that for a week, So anyway, I go in and do the scan, and they do the scan around the spine, and it comes back clear, except they notice a spot in my lung, a little tiny spot in my lung. And I said, I seen it. I was going to Las Vegas for a stag party, and I never read the scans. And on the way to the airport, like an idiot, I read the scan, and I seen the spot in my lung. Now, my mind was racing. I'm calling the hospital from security line and everything. Like, check. Oh, it was horrible. So eventually they get back to me just before I'm about to board the plane, and the doctor says, no, look, lots of people have a little spot in their lung. You're in construction. It could be from breathing in a bit of dust. It could be from anything. He said, it's so small. All we do is we just check it on the next scan. And I'm like, oh, thank God, So I get on the plane to Vegas. I have a great time in Vegas with the lads at the stag party and all that, right? Now, I get back from Las Vegas, and I'm in work. I get back, say, Monday. I'm in work, and Friday afternoon I'm in work, and I can feel this stabbing pain in my back. And it got gradually worse throughout the day. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I'm trying to work away. I get home. The missus is here. Her ma is over here at the time as well. I'm downstairs in the sitting room, and I says to her, back is at me. And it kept getting worse. And she works on Saturdays. She goes, tomorrow, which would be Saturday, if you're still feeling like this, you got to drive yourself over to the hospital and find out what this is. So I was like, all right. So I got up Saturday morning, and it was like there was a couple of knives in my back. It felt that bad. I'm like, what is happening here now? And all I'm thinking is the scan and everything else. So I drive over to the hospital, and I go in, and they do a scan on me anyway. They're doing scans and ultrasounds and all this, and they're like, we can't see anything that be causing this pain. But by the way, you have a couple of nodules in your lungs. And I go, what? And he's like, yeah, there's a couple of nodules in there. I said, I thought there was just one there. And he goes, no, you've got a few of them there. So I go, and he goes, oh, they're only small, but you should bring it over to your cancer hospital. And now at this point, I felt like just driving off a cliff in the car. I'm like, oh, no. So I get the scan in a disc, and I go home. And they couldn't find out what the pain was. They're like, we don't know what the pain is. We can't find anything. Now, my missus gets home from work, and she sees this little tiny dot on my rib cage. Long story short, it turns out it was shingles. And I never had, like, you don't get shingles really, like when you're young and healthy and all this stuff. But if you go through chemo, it's common to get shingles after, because your immune system's after taking a beating. So anything that will come out.
Yeah.
And she noticed a little spot, and only for her friend in college had shingles, she knew what it was. She goes, I think that's shingles. So I called up one of them, ZocDocs or whatever on the video calls.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, that looks like it could be shingles. So he gave me an antiviral, and then I got to my primary care then on the Monday, and they're like, yeah, you have shingles. And the thing came out like horrible, like all around the back. Like it's a horrible experience. very painful, you know, that kind of way, just very painful. So from the shingles, it was kind of a good thing, because then they noticed these nodules. So I brought it over to me doctor.
It kind of pushed into the...
Yeah, like, as bad as getting shingles is, it actually made me notice that I've got more nodules in my lungs, and that this has to be seriously looked at. So it kind of sped up the process of monitoring what was going on. So I went in anyway, and I hadn't seen, the last conversation I had with my oncologist was, "You're doing great now. I don't want to see you for a long time." And I remember that day feeling absolutely great. And then 6 months later, or whatever this is, 7 or 8 months later, I'm going back in to drop a disc off with the scan. I remember driving up to the hospital that time. I hadn't been there in months. And I'm like, from going there every day to have not been in there months, it's a surreal feeling when you get in there, you know? And I'm like, oh, what am I doing back here? Like, so I dropped the scan off. They looked at it, get a call during the week, and it's from him. He said, "Look, I want to monitor it." The way they do it is so if they've no data on it, they have to collect data on it. So what they do is they're looking at that scan on day 1, and then they say, right, we're going to scan you again in 2 months and see where you're at. So 2 months came by, and they hadn't really grown. They were still there, hadn't really grown. And the doctor said, this would have been in 2023, just around June or July of 2023. He said, I want to, because you're young, I want to see what this is early. So he said, they haven't really grown, which would have kind of told them it's a cancer cell. So he said, I'm going to book you in for a biopsy. Now, they were so small in me, but there was a few of them. The way they biopsy it is they just put the way they would normally biopsy it, if it was bigger, they put a long needle in right into where it is. They'd have like an ultrasound or whatever way they're viewing it on their screen. They put the long needle in and they take the cells out. That's how they biopsied this one when I went in the throat. They put a needle in and you can see it on the screen, and they pluck a few cells from it and then they test it. So he said, because you can't do that one with this because they're so small, which is catch-22, now you got to go for a bigger operation because the nodules are so small, as opposed to having bigger nodules and being able to use the needle. They got to go in, they got to open you up. Now, how they do it is, so I went into to the surgeon on the lung, and he explains it to you. Your lung is like a sack. If you're like, people's lungs collapse, you know, then they can expand again. But if your lung collapses, it goes like a sack, and it's just like a spongy sack. And he said they're going to basically deflate my lung. He's going to go in through my rib cage. He's going to open in through one rib cage with like a camera, and another rib cage with like a little plucker kind of device. So they open up 2 spots in the ribs and 1 in the back. And they went in, and after flattening the lung, like after deflating it, they can feel the little nodules in it, like feeling a bag with little stones in it, you know? So they're going around and they can feel it. So he's able to pluck them out. Luckily enough, most of them were on the surface. So he plucks those ones out, and then they take them off for testing. And this is another rarity that happened to me. What's supposed to happen is you're supposed to be done by the following day, and they have a tube. So when they expand your lung, they put a tube in between your rib cage and your lung, right? So it goes in through your rib cage. And what that does is, if your lung is, because it's like a sponge with a sack, when you breathe in air, the air's got to stay in your lung. But when they open that sack, when you breathe in air, it comes out, and that bit of air comes out between the rib cage and the lung. So they have a little tube that goes from in that space between your rib cage and your lung, and it comes out. So I had this little tube that was coming out, and it was going onto a monitoring device. Now, the following day, you're supposed to your lung's supposed to heal within a day or 2, and then that means that the lung has sealed up again. You're not going to get air trapped in between your rib and your lung cage, because if you get air trapped in between your rib and your lung cage, and your lung has expanded, your lung will collapse again, because the air will just keep getting bigger and bigger in the gap. So my one didn't heal for about 3 weeks. Just my luck. So whatever way it was cut, and whatever way it was, they thought it'd be done a day or 2. And I was in there, and each morning they'd come in, they'd check it, still there. Next day, still there. And when you're in the hospital, you're in the room. Now, luckily enough, I was all right at this time. I'd have my book, I'd have my iPad. You know, I had a roommate who was nuts, and I talked to him a little bit. You know, this old American lad. And then they have the way the floor is a big square. They have it's nearly like a walking lap that you can do. Yeah. Sure, I'd be breaking records in there just walking around because it was grand only for, it's grand only for having this. And I was in there for I was in there for nearly 2 weeks. And then eventually they said, right, we're going to let you go home because you're in here that long. And they had a little device, a little filter, so air can go out, but it couldn't come in. Yeah. So they had that on me. I have pictures. I'll send you some pictures and stuff of this stuff. So it's hanging out here. Now I'd be lying in bed, and over the night, if the air didn't come out of that, so I woke up in the morning and it moved a certain way, you just hear this big, it's like a whistle. And then the missus be laughing at it, I get up in the morning and you just hear, and then it was letting the air out. So eventually one day, it wasn't letting the air out. You get a bit of a panic. I drove into the city, but turns out the lung had healed. So you go in and they basically rip it out. And that's what they do with the feeding tube as well. Once you're eating again, they wait for you not to use the feeding tube for 2 weeks, and then they rip it out. And it's just no big fancy surgery, just rip it out. And the pain of it. But so they done that anyway. I went in and the surgery was done. They found out, tested the cancer cells. It was squamous cell carcinoma after spreading to the lungs. So now you have a thing called metastatic cancer because it's spread. So they got to check you all over and whatnot. And then I went on a treatment called immunotherapy. It's Keytruda. Keytruda's out about 10 years, I think. It's developed by a company called Merck, big pharmaceutical company. And it's working wonders for people. I went on that. I've been on that since September 2023, and I just stopped. There towards the end of the summer. So I was on it for around a year.
And that involves radiation, but not chemo. Is that correct?
No radiation with that one. I didn't do any more radiation at that point. And no more radiation at that point. Only the radiation on the throat. But then when I started the Keytruda, it's really a case of seeing, does it work or not, and I was on a trial. So the trial, what I was saying earlier about, they have treatments A, B, C, and D that they hit you with, and then they try and limit it down. Well, what this was, Keytruda was used in conjunction with chemotherapies and radiations and all that. So the trial for this was just using Keytruda. And what the Keytruda did, it basically, I think it highlights the cancer cells as like a foreign entity in your body, and your immune system attacks it then. The immune system's like, oh, let's get this out of here. So use it, I think it's a PDL1 protein. I'm not an expert on the Keytruda, so someone might know more, but it's some sort of protein that they know you have it. So you have to have a score between 0 and 100 when they test your cells. So some people don't have it. I don't think they can use Keytruda if you don't have it, or else they have to use it with something else. But if you do have a score between 0 and 100, it means you have the protein for it, and the Keytruda should work. I had a score of 3, which is very, very low. But he said to me, it doesn't really matter that it's low. It just matters that you have it. So it just matters that your immune system can see that there's a protein in there. It doesn't matter if you have a score from at 99. I don't know what way it works. If it works better, they have a higher score. But he said it doesn't really matter. It's as long as you have a score. That's basically it. So I started on it. And initially I start on it and I do a scan and the tumors had grown. But it's called pseudo progression. Basically what it is, just if anyone's going through it and they do their first scan and they get a fright because it's grown, basically what pseudo progression is, your immune system now is starting to attack these cells, so they swell. They're swelling because it's getting, it's getting hit. So you want to see it going down on the next scan. So on the next scan, we start seeing them going down and then down and down and down. Now, through all of that, there was one nodule that stayed the same size, which had me concerned. Doctor wasn't too concerned because he said he's been dealing with this so long. He's seen this for years. And basically what can happen is it could be immune cells in there. It could be scar tissue, it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily mean it's cancer cells. So we kept on going with it, and this one nodule that stayed the same size just during last summer, it started to grow again. So it started to grow a little bit, which is, you're like, oh crap. But the immunotherapy had wiped out so much of it, so I'm grateful for that. Just unfortunately, it didn't work all the way on me, Now, some people are on immunotherapy for years. Some people are on it and it clears up their whole cancer. Some people are on it and it doesn't work. It's cancer. You never know, Yeah. So this thing cleaned up so much of it, but one of them did start to grow. So at this point, there was 2 nodules left. One of them had never shrank and it started to grow again. The other one had shrank in half. So they thought at this point, that's a dead piece of, dead piece of meat, essentially. So the first one that never shrank, that started to grow again. And they were like, okay, we got to do something with that. So what the plan was radiation. So I don't know if you remember, just there during the summer, I went back on radiation again. So I did a bit of radiation. I did 15 days of it. And that worked great. It started to shrink it. When I finished that, I done a follow-up scan, and the other nodule that had shrank in half started to grow again, which can happen. It can be a case that your body becomes nearly immune to the Keytruda at that point. It's able to fight back a bit. So the cancer cells start to grow again. So that's what happened for this one. That's why I'm going through what I'm going through now. So what happened is, with that starting to grow again, they were like, okay, you just did radiation. You can't do it again for 6 months. It increases the chance of side effects. So say you had a 5% chance of side effects with 1 dose of radiation, that bumps up to 10 or 15% with the second dose, which in their world is huge and it can cause you a lot of problems, that 5 or 10% difference, So they're like, what we're going to do is we're going to try it on this chemotherapy, immunotherapy combo. And it's been working great for people after doing Keytruda. So I was like, all right, do what you got to do. Now, the side effects with that are the acne I told you about, neuropathy, hair loss, all this stuff, typical kind of cancer treatment side effects. So I started on that then in the start of December. The point of that was, what had happened was when the other one started to grow again, the second one, sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over, but I forgot to tell you, when the other one started to grow again, I had actually at the same time started to notice my breathing was different. So when I'd take a deep breath, it was like sucking air through a straw. And I said that to my doctor, and he said, well, there's nothing on your scan. This other one has grown a little bit, but there's nothing showing anything that would cause that. So I went to Ireland, and I was in Ireland there for 2 weeks. And when I got back, I went back in, and they were going to just monitor this one to see if it grew again, if it was growing even more. He said it could be still pseudo-progression. So when I got back here, I went in to do treatment with the Keytruda, and I talked to the doctor. He came down to me. I said, listen, I'm still having that breathing issue where it's like sucking air through a straw. And he said, let me hear you. So he heard it, and he goes, I'm going to send you to a pulmonologist. I want you to see a pulmonologist because we don't see anything in a scan. So the pulmonologist did a scan on it, and she's seen that the tumor that they were talking about that started to grow, there was a part of it that was pushing on this tiny little airway. And it was causing me that when I breathe in, it was causing me to feel like I was sucking air through a straw. It was giving me like a 70% reduction in the airflow in there. So she communicated with my doctor. They found out what was going on. He goes, right, well, then we got to sort this out soon. So they said, let's put him on chemotherapy until February and see if it stops that tumor from growing. The whole point was to stop it growing. But he said he's been getting good results with this, that it's actually been knocking cancer out of it. So they did that. And within a couple of weeks, I noticed my breathing started to get better. I didn't feel the thing anymore. And I said it to him, and he goes, that's a great sign. And I knew it was a great sign because it's a physical sign, Yeah. I can physically feel that I'm sucking the air in and it's not getting obstructed. So I was like, okay, this is good. This is in my head. I'm like, this is going all right. So we went in, we got another scan, and it showed just recently, just last week or 2 weeks ago, that it had knocked it down by over half. So when all this kicked off again, I was feeling fine, but I always get asked about the journey. I always get asked about, the processes and, and do you mind if I put someone in contact with you? Just from my own personal page, do you mind if I put someone in contact with you? So I said to myself, you know what? The first week I started back on the chemotherapy, I said, I'll document it a bit. And, it might help someone. Even if it helps one person to kind of say, just because you got cancer, it's not the end of the world. You get through. Look what I've been through. I've been through so many different. I'm 3 years fighting this now. You can get through it. So I just said I'd start documenting it and start doing it. And it's actually helped even the lads and all, because they're like, this is great because you don't have to keep bothering you, asking you how it is. You're giving the updates, and people are seeing like the real side of cancer treatment. You know, I didn't really know much about that before. I just thought you get cancer, you know, you go for treatment, then you either get better or you don't, you know, and that was all it was. I didn't think too much of it. I've dealt with cancer in the family a couple of times and things like that. But you don't know too much about it. You just know that you go in, you get poison put in your body to try and kill it, and you're hoping it works. And sometimes it doesn't. But that's kind of where it was. So I was trying to show a different side to it, where, you know, I'm still going to work. Right now, I'm working from home. Thank God, I'm not going into the site too much.
How was work being with you through all this, through the last 3 years?
My work is great. Luckily enough, when I moved here, I started studying engineering, and I got, you know, I'm an electrician by trade. I started studying engineering, and I got a job with a very good company 6 years ago. And I got a job as a PM with a project manager with them. So a lot of 95% of my work is done on a computer. So I'm not, if I was still an electrician, still in the field, I definitely would have been taking a lot more time off than I have. Yeah. So the fact that I'm able to sit at my desk and, you know, read up my contracts, do my work, you know, sending me changes, all that stuff, it's handy for me to be able to work from home. I have the whole office set up at home here. I can do that on. But if I was still like lugging conduit and wire and all around, I wouldn't be able physically for that. And work is great, you know. My boss, I get on very well with my boss and some of my bosses and whatnot. I get on very well with them, and I get my work done, so they leave me to it, you know.
Yeah, that's good, because it still means that you still have purpose throughout your day. And
exactly, you're still bringing in a wage at the end of the week and all, you know what I mean? Because the first time I actually took 6 months off, I had to, you know. I wasn't able to do anything at that point. So, but luckily enough, this time I haven't had to take any time off work, thank God, and hopefully, knock on wood, that should be the way it stays.
And I imagine them little moments when, like, even, you know, you can notice that you can breathe properly again. Like, they must be massive wins or massive.
Massive. When that happened, I was saying to her and all, you know, I can feel myself breathing a bit better. I can say, you know, and then you're kind of questioning yourself, am I feeling that? Or, you know, and then after a day or two, like, no, definitely feeling that now. And then she'd say, oh, I can hear you breathing a bit better there, you know, because she could hear the wisp in it. So she started noticing. So then we told me doctor, he was delighted, because up until the last scan that I had, all the previous scans in the last while have just been crap. You know what I mean? And not like you're dying crap, but just like, I wish they were better.
Deflated.
You know? Yeah, where this one was like, great. You know what I mean? This is a big win for me now. So that was nice to get that. It was nice to see it, that what you're going through is worth it in the end. You know, that kind of way.
Yeah, and then obviously that boost, and then starting the page, and I presume that's obviously, like, even though it's helping other people as well, it's obviously probably helping you as well, just being able to.
I didn't even think it would help. I didn't know that. I didn't know that side of it. I was like, I'm just gonna tell people my story. But yeah, it's after giving me I don't know, like a mental boost where I'm like, it's nice to get the story out there, and it's nice to let people know what's going on. It's nice to talk about it, and it just spurs me on more, you know. Just in my head, I'm doing little things that, like I was saying earlier, or last night, I said one that I do. I get up and I tell the cancer cells, "You're dead. I'm going to kill you. Like, you're gone soon." It's just it's a stupid little thing, but it's just something that makes me feel better.
So you know, when I was looking at that, when I was looking at that video, I actually went to, like, because I always put things back to research and stuff like that. And I was looking up any research on this and stuff like that. And, you know, there was one study where it was like just basically talking about, I don't know if I can find it now. But it was basically saying, but it just in terms of that, reinforcing positive self-talk and stuff like that, that it can help with kind of your well-being and like, just even resilience going through that, and reduces stress, reduces depression, reduces anxiety, which can all help with, obviously, you building up like a stronger resilience to these things.
That's what I think. I think that's it. I think that will do, because you always hear people, you know, put it out there, put it in the universe, and
and like, some people will think that's woo woo. I don't think it is woo woo. I think there's loads of kind of science to back that up, in terms of, like, what you reinforce what you say, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And that's it really. I just want that out there. Like my mindset is not going to think another way. You know, my mindset is pretty solid that I'm going to be cancer free soon.
But also then it also helps the people that are also going through cancer seeing your reaction to it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I've got so many positive messages, so many messages from people going through it, and that are they're getting on to me and saying, you're so positive, and I'm like, but you should be too. I know you're going through it, but you got to keep positive, because the better you feel, the better you feel, like the better mentally that you're going to get through it. I think the cancer cells hate that. I think they know what's going on. I think the cancer cells are in there. They're comfortable in there, especially like I was saying when I was doing the Keytruda and I didn't really notice any side effects. I was thinking to myself, they're getting too comfortable in there. Like they're comfortable in there. I don't want them comfortable. Like bring on the pain, bring on the crap, because it's only short term. But the cancer cells will only last short term. They're weak. They're going to be gone at the first sign of discomfort. You know what I mean? They don't want to be there. They want to be just camped up and just feeding off you and growing. They don't want this discomfort. That any sort of discomfort will cause apoptosis in them, and they just start killing themselves. So you want to just make it as uncomfortable as possible for them. And every time you feel uncomfortable, just know that they're feeling worse. That's why I look at it.
And I suppose I have two last questions that I wanted to ask you, and I suppose that just leads on to what you've just been touching on. And I was just like, for people who are listening, who are going through their own battles that are similar to this, or in their own kind of way, like what message would you have for them?
People going through their own battles. So obviously everybody's battle is different. So people can be in different stages, and it's easy for me to say, keep positive and blah blah. But what if you're at the end? What if you're in a battle where you can't get out of? For anyone in a stage, which is it's grim, but if you're in a stage where they're kind of saying you're not getting out of it, and you're kind of get your finances in order, that kind of talk, I can only say, like, yeah, do what you can to look back at your life and be as proud of what you've done as you can. You know what I mean? Don't look at the stuff you missed out on, but look at the stuff you did do, and make yourself like you accomplish things without even knowing it was an accomplishment. You know what I mean? So look back at yourself.
Did you have that kind of stage where you were looking back on regret of things you hadn't done rather than appreciation for the things that you did do?
Yeah, definitely. I looked back and I was like, I don't know if it was regret was the wrong word, but it was things I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, because look, you can't do everything, right? Let's be honest, you can't do everything. You see these lads on Instagram, and they're in the Bahamas and they're sipping on cocktails, live life like me, and like you probably got paid to be there. Like the normal Joe Soap has got to go to work on a Monday morning, got to get paid on a Friday, and they got to plan around what they can afford. So you got to do things within your means, but you got to enjoy them as well. You got to, so the simplest form of enjoying things for me now, which my family and all, I've got a very, very good, very big family between my immediate family, my cousins, second cousins, aunties, uncles. I've got them everywhere. They're all over, we're everywhere, put it that way. So I have so many good memories with all of them over all the years, and my mates as well. I've got a big group of friends. I have so many good, funny memories with all of them over the years. And then I started my own family. And now I've got some great memories with me missus, and me, her, and Tommy. We've done some traveling. Last year we went over to Italy. We traveled around Italy, the three of us. We went to Disney World last year, but I got to bring Tommy, which that was a big one. I was like, when I was fighting, I was like, in my head, I was like, I'm never going to get to bring Tommy to Disney World when you're thinking like that. But no, we got to bring him down to Disney World, which is huge for the kid, So there was things like that. And I bring him to Ireland. He gets to see all his cousins and family and friends. Things like that are the big achievements for me, that we get to do all that stuff. So they're big wins for me. And then right now, I'm not really living with many regrets. I'm living with looking into the future and what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's places I want to go. Like I'm dying to go over and see Japan. I'm dying to see Australia. I'm dying to do Greece for the missus is half Greek, so I'm dying to do Greece with the missus. And they're little things you can do. That you can book that flight in the morning if you wanted, right? Let's be honest, but things are in the way. Life is there, so you got to do your things. Tommy's got his school and whatnot. So these are things that we look towards when we plan. So I wouldn't say right now I have any regrets.
Excitement and gratitude for what you do.
Yeah, Exactly. Excitement and appreciating what I do have, because I have a lot. You know, I've been very fortunate in life.
Not just people with cancer, just people in general always make
Yeah.
that mistake of not.
But I made that mistake. I'm sure we all did. I would think, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. And I'm looking at someone up the street going, they have a better life than me and all. You know, you don't need to think like that. Everybody's different. Everybody's going through their own troubles. That lad I was looking at up the street going, he's a better life than me. He could be suffering with anxiety. He could be suffering with anything. And it just is a facade that his life to me looks great. And he might be saying the same thing about me. He might go, that lad's life looks amazing. So I don't think you need to regret the things. I think you just need to look at the future and try and enjoy them. But to go back to the point of the people that are in that situation, that kind of, so there's like I was saying, there's a bit different stages of cancer. So it's kind of like one advice for one person is not going to work for the next. But anyone that's going through it, and there are some people there that they're coming to, you know, they're really stuck in a situation where that could be the really possible outcome. For any of those people, you know, I would advise them, it's not much you could advise them, but I'd advise them to look back at their life with more appreciation and know that they got dealt a bad hand, but to try and handle it as in the best way they can and enjoy whatever days they have. And if there's days where they are healthy and they go for a walk and all, enjoy those days. And if it's the days where they got to rest, you know, rest. Don't feel guilty about it. The other people that are going through starting their journey, it's like we live, and I've said this on my Instagram. We live in a time now where there's so many options available for treatments of all different types of cancers. There's so many options available. We're living in a time now where AI is being introduced to treat cancers, to get involved, not to treat them, but to get involved in it. AI is only going to get smarter. I'm not an AI expert by any means, but I know that it's going to start helping out the medical industry. I know they're already using it. I know you'll probably see it on your Instagrams and on your Facebooks and all that. There's stories where they're reading through scans and they're picking up on things and they're noticing cancers 5 years before a doctor would notice it. Because with a scan will only show you, I think it's up to 2 millimeters is what of a nodule is what a scan will show you. So anything below that, it can't really see. It can't see that there's cancer there. Now, my thought process on the whole AI thing is that's going to constantly keep reading and memorizing scans. So if you get one person and he's been healthy all the way up until the age of 25, and say he's had 3 scans before 25, which isn't going to be a lot of people, but like in the percentage, if you work out over the total population, there'll be a lot of people. But percentage-wise, it's not a lot of people. But if you have a guy in had 3 healthy scans, and next minute he has cancer, so they're going to put those scans into AI or whatever, and it's going to pick up the common denominator that led him to the point where now he has cancer. It's going to go, well, this is here, but the human eye can't see, that might be able to see. So I'm very optimistic about the future when it comes to healthcare. I only hope they use it to cure rather than try and build a subscription-based model of patients, if you get me, because they are on the stock market. They want to make money. So what I'd say to people is starting out on their journey is it is definitely a worrying time, and you're well entitled to worry, but cancer feeds on stress as well. Yeah. So try and look at the positives, that you're not getting this 20 years ago where it was a death sentence. You're getting in 2025. There's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of treatments. There's even stuff, as we see with a lot of people sent me Mel Gibson talking to Joe Rogan the other day on his podcast. That stuff is all an option. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. A lot of people putting down, it's not going to work for everyone, but it might work for you. It might work for someone. So there's so many more options available to us now that are less invasive as they were before. So realize that you're in a time now where you could be cured of this. They're starting to use the word survivors now of cancer. As it used to be, like, you have cancer, you kind of, you had cancer, you wait 5 years, now they're using these words where you are a survivor of cancer. You know what I mean? Are you, like, my doctor has said cured a few times in this, where he never would say that before, So I believe we're getting to a turning point where cancers are going to start getting cured. And if you're only getting it now, you're in a good time to get it. a good time for a bad situation and a good time to get it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of options there for you now. So try not be as stressed.
Do you think that optimism is, something that's essential to get through them difficult moments?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I remember a couple of years ago, I don't know if I read the study or someone read the study, that even something simple like watching comedies. There was a study on that it helped your body fight cancer cells, right? Now you'd have to find a study. I was going through it at the time, and someone said that, so I was hopping off Seinfeld and Friends and any comedy I could think of. But there's that. There's another study I seen the other day where if you listen to Beethoven Fifth Symphony, that it knocked 25%. Now, I haven't looked at these studies. I don't know what way they're doing it, but I seen a video on sound waves and what it was doing to cancer cells. So maybe that is what they're talking about. I'm not 100%, but I now listen to a bit of Beethoven the odd time, and I'll do that. I'll do anything I can, because I think anyone can get cancer, and I think anyone can get rid of cancer. I think anything can cure cancer, but it doesn't mean that it's all going to work on everybody. I do think there's a cure for you, like your specific body. I do think there's something out there that gets rid of it for you, and it's just finding it. Like what I'm going through now, I've already gone through chemo, through radiation, through immunotherapy. Now I'm on a chemo immuno combination. You have to hit it with everything you can, and hopefully one sticks.
Makes sense. And then I suppose the last question I'll have for you, so like that's advice you're giving to people who are going through cancer, who have been diagnosed. What about for friends and family, like you just touched on? So obviously you probably know, like I'm a big advocate now of a big realization to me over the last 8 years of doing this job, is that relationships are the most important thing. But in terms of health, I think social connection, social relationships, your friends, your family, your community, I think like that's it. And as corny as it is, that's the key to everything. And you have such support in terms of your family, in terms of your friends. For people who, have a close loved one or, a best friend going through cancer, what kind of advice would you have for them people?
For people that, the easiest thing is being there for them, which you are going to be there for them. And then you get into, well, what can you do for them?
Yeah, because a lot of people feel helpless, right?
A lot of people feel helpless. The biggest thing I think you could do, depending on your relationship with the person, but if you're close friends with them and if they haven't got a lot of people or whatnot, is if they need help, like if they need help where on a day when they need a rest and they need to get stuff done, that'd be like if someone could come in and take a bit of the weight off your shoulders for that stuff and help you out with whether it's your paperwork, whether it's talking to a doctor for you, whether it's understanding what the doctor's saying, getting your meds, little things like that, which is normal stuff. You'd help if anyone was sick, you're kind of like, oh, do you need it? And that kind of thing. But there's not a lot you can do for someone like that. It really is you that is fighting this battle. The only thing, the easiest thing you can do for someone is make them comfortable. Make them as comfortable as possible to fight this with. Make them whatever that person, because obviously everyone's different, but make that person be able to use all their energy on fighting this disease, because you need every ounce of energy you have to fight it. So if you can just help them out in whatever way they need to do, that their energy is solely focused on getting better and keeping them positive. Let them know. Some people don't want to hear a study, though, of how this person beat cancer. Some people don't want. So you have to kind of read the room as well.
Yeah.
Keep them positive within reason. Show them that, Mary in England is after beating the same cancer by doing this. Show them that. If they don't want to listen to it, that could just be the time where they're just not having it right there. But the next day they could be, how did Mary beat that in England? You know what I mean? What did she do? And they could be all about it, which is like me too, because I was getting so many studies and I was like, will you ever off with the studies and the thing, and the amount of messages I got, oh, well, this lad beat it from that. Oh, this lad went on an all juice diet. This lad went on that. Like, I get it. It can be very inundating with all this stuff. It can be very overwhelming. You're like, okay, I get it that these people beat it, but it can also be very, very annoying. You're like, I'm trying to get through this. I don't have all. You know what the worst thing is? When people give you a half advice. They go, there's a study here that this guy kind of did this. All right, if you're going to give it to me with exactly what he did and what you think I should do. Don't just give me the thing where I now got to read 100 pages and I got to put, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's like they're giving it to you and they're like, well, I'm giving you the resource and you figure it out. I'm like, I get that, but I have enough going on my plate right now. So I take a lot of that with a pinch of salt at the moment. And I advise anyone, that's probably the best advice is take stuff with a pinch of salt. Just get comfortable. Listen to your doctors. Do your own bit of research on your Instagrams and your YouTubes and everything else. See what's working for people and see if you want to try it. Because I do that too. I look at something and go, geez, I could try that. That's not going to be too much of a hindrance. And I'll try things, you know. Like, don't get me wrong. I had all that stuff that Mel Gibson was talking about. I had all that before he even started talking about it, because you read up on this stuff. There's a doctor called Dr. Makis, Makis, and he has a Substack, and I signed up for that. I think it was about $60 for the year. But he's very against conventional methods for treating cancer. Now, he also says you should do what your doctor's saying. He's not saying don't do anything your doctor's saying. He's saying, but you can add all this stuff in. It's like another doctor will come along and say, get your diet right, only eat fruit and veg and whatever.
Yeah. It's like you're following you're following the medical advice while also trying to find things along the way that is also going to even increase 40% to improve the outcome.
Exactly. And that's what I'm doing. You're using as many methods as you can, and you're seeing if it you're seeing what it's going to do, because I take other stuff on the side. I won't get into it now, but I take other stuff on the side that I've just looked at. I've seen what it's done. I've read a few studies on it and whatnot. And I said, right, different type of vitamins and different things. You know what I mean? Like, you got your CBD oils, your turkey tail. You got all these different things that you can add in. And this doctor has actually given me a protocol and it's like, do your chemotherapy, but here's another thing to do on the side. And if anyone wants to know what I'm doing on the side as well, feel free to reach out and I'll send you the protocol I'm doing. But it's your decision, you want to do these things or not. You know what I mean? I made this decision, but I'm adding that in as another form, another weapon to fight this stuff. That's what I'm doing. So I'm just trying to get rid of this. I want my next PET scan to show absolutely nothing. And then I'm going to grow the hair back and go nuts during the summer. That's what I'm doing.
I suppose then the last question I'll ask you, because it just popped into my head when you were talking. So, like, do you think that you're with all the times in and out of these hospitals? I'd say you're absolutely sick of hospitals, but like,
yeah,
you doing this as a father and you know what I mean, having your wife, rather than maybe if this happened 10 years earlier as a single man, do you think that was the kind of motivation that helped you to go through all this kind of basically pain to get through?
Without a doubt, the two of them are the most important things in the world to me, Heidi and Tommy. So I would go through all of this 10 times over if it meant I was going to be here for as long as I can with them. It's 100%. You know, I think if I was single, not that you wouldn't have anything to fight for. I know what I'm like, and I know what my mentality is like. I'd still want to be around, because even before I ever got cancer, I used to complain in my head that life is too short, because I love life. I have a very, very good life. I just always felt that life is great. You know, I've had that attitude for a long time. Don't get me wrong, when you go through your breakups or you're arguing with your mate or something, yeah, you know, life can be shitty then, but I've for the most part, I've had a very good mindset when it comes to life, and I love it. You know, I love being from Bray. I absolutely love that. I love that I can walk down the town or down the beach and you know everyone, and you know, don't get me wrong, you've had your falling out with lads over the years on the football pitch or down the road, but even after all that, you see these lads now and everybody's mates, you know, everybody's friends, and I love that. I love being able to go home, grab a cup of tea down Finby's, go for a walk along the beach, see people. It's brilliant. It's such a good feeling. It's such a good town to be from, such good people, and I love all that. But having a wife and a child spurs you on to you know, to fight as hard as you can, harder than you ever thought you could before, you know. Yeah. So like, I want to grow old with me missus, you know. I'm very in love with me missus, and I want to grow old with her and watch Tommy grow up and please God have another one or two kids if we can, you know. That's the way I kind of think. So
Deadly. I love that. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. But Tommy, thank you for your time today. Make sure, if you're listening to this, make sure you follow the Instagram page, Tommy's Cancer Journey. And if you want to support the podcast or share the episode, do it on social media, do it on Facebook, do it on Instagram. The best way to help grow the podcast and continue to bring valuable conversations like this one we had today with Tommy is by sharing on social media. Tommy, again, thank you so much for today. Thank you for sharing your story. I've no doubt it's going to make a big difference on other people going through similar experiences. Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you like that episode and you want to see more content like this, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you on the next one.